Hey there fellow exiles, and welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be going over my build for Legacy of Phrecia. This event is a really interesting event. We have a bunch of new different classes, and so I want to go over my build for this event because I actually managed to put together a build multiple builds that I've been wanting to do for a very long time, and I managed to sort of meld them into one build. So I'm very happy with this build. In case you didn't see in the title, this is going to be Tornado Shot Mines on Aristocrat with tri-attribute stacking. Now, before we get into the video, I'm going to basically talk about a little bit of background on why I wanted to do this build. For a very long time, I've wanted to do 4 different types of archetypes as far as builds are concerned, for about like 3 or 4 leagues for each of these ideas, and I've just never had a build that I could really make that was super strong with any of these things. And somehow, some way, with this event and the ascendancies that we've got, and I've managed to actually make a build that incorporates all 4 of them at once. So what are these 4 things? Well, the first is doing Tornado Shot Mines. I've wanted to do Tornado Shot Mines for a while. I saw some footage of it being like a delve build a very long time ago, and I've been really thinking about it as a skill for quite a while. I'll get into why it's good in a little bit. The second build that I've wanted to do for a very long time is Tornado Shot Tri-Attribute Stacker using Poised Prism and Widowhill. But I could never quite make it work. Usually the payoff ascendancy for tri-stacking was Inquisitor, and kind of just the location of Inquisitor on the tree just didn't usually work. The third thing that I wanted to make was a Curtain Call tri-attribute stacker, which is any sort of like mine build, which I would usually try to PoB with spells, and it never really seemed to work out just to quite the extent that I wanted it. Curtain Call being a very comfy helmet. We'll get a little more into the details there later. And the last thing being making a miner on a duelist using Fatal Flourish, which I am using now. However, I will assure you this is not required for the build. I am going to showcase this with normal jewels. I have played this build from about 30 divine investment all the way up till now, which with these items down here, which again are not needed for the build, we're sitting at about 2 mirrors invested. Currently on the character with these items out, it's about 1 mirror, slightly under actually. It's probably somewhere closer to about 350 divines-ish that I put into this character overall. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into the build. So the first thing, of course, the glaring thing, Tornado Shot Mines. Why stick Tornado Shot on a mine? Right? Why stick Tornado Shot on a mine? So Tornado Shot recently got nerfed, and it got nerfed in 2 ways. The first way that it got nerfed was it lost a secondary projectile, because it used to get +1 secondary projectile from its quality. Now it's just 40% increased projectile speed. The second way it got nerfed is they nerfed its attack speed. They nerfed the attack speed down to 80%. So this means any sort of, if you have a 1 APS base bow, your base attack speed with Tornado Shot is only 0.8. Respective, if you have a 1.5 APS, that times 0.8, which would be 1.2, etc, etc. So it feels a lot worse to play because attack speed is the bread and butter of most attack builds. You really need a good amount of attack speed to make it feel comfortable, right? So that was the first nerf. Of course, comfort being nerfed and DPS being nerfed at the same time, pretty big pain point. The second thing that got nerfed is the secondary projectile. Now, the 2 main downfalls of the secondary projectile are far shot being nerfed because it's harder to overlap secondary projectiles with far shot. So now you have to basically play point blank if you want 90% or more overlaps on your projectiles with Tornado Shot. And the second thing that really suffered was the clear, losing basically 30% of your projectiles is a pretty big deal, because, or well, 25% of your projectiles is a pretty big deal, right? 33% increased projectiles for a quality is pretty insane, especially when you're playing a Tornado Shot build that typically gets 7-8 arrows, which fire 3 secondary projectiles each. Going from 3 to 4 was a very big deal. So those were the 2 main nerfs. Now, the reason that I'm playing Mines is because it happens to dodge both of these nerfs. The attack speed for Mines is somewhat irrelevant, as I'll explain later. For Mines, the attack speed is mostly irrelevant, and the main reason for this is you are now based off of mine throwing speed instead of your attack speed, right? Now, normally I wouldn't have considered a mine build, except recently we got access to automation and detonate mine support, which lets you completely automate the detonation of your mines. Now, unfortunately, I can't do this in hideout, so I'm just going to go to like blood aqueducts or something just to show you guys the mechanic. But when you have automation enabled while it's attached to detonate mines, basically all this does is as soon as you place a mine, boom, it just detonates immediately, right? Pretty insane. The second reason that Tornado Shot works super well on mines is the point blank problem. You need to be point blank to do optimal damage with Tornado Shot now, which means if you're playing a bow character, you have to walk all the way up to the boss and hit them in their face. But with mines, you can throw mines across the screen, and point blank is calculated from, at least as far as I know, it's calculated from the location of the mine. So I'm just going to turn off automation here so you can just see. So on a miner, I could throw my mines all the way out, all the way to the boss, and then they will fire off from there and shotgun the boss in the most optimal manner possible, while also enabling me to use point blank, so I don't have the downside of needing to walk up to the boss. So two very big things. The third thing, which we'll get into a bit later, is thanks to Curtain Call, I can throw 3 mines at once, and that sort of alleviates the issue of needing to solve for clear losing 1 secondary projectile, since every single time I throw a mine, I throw 3 mines, which means I shoot 3 tornado shots, which is a huge deal. The last thing that Tornado Shot Mines is very strong with, and huge credit to Arrow for this because I actually yoinked this straight out of his Ice Shot of Penetration build, is that when you play a bow on a mine skill, it still enables manaforged arrows, because the wording on manaforged arrows says they trigger when you've spent enough mana on other bow attacks. Tornado Shot Mines is still a bow attack. It just happens to be on a mine. So even though it's a mine, I can throw my Tornado Shot, and as you can see, this is my Manaforged arrows. It goes off whenever it's off cooldown, which is a very big deal. Because what this means is I can then use this main 6-link on Manaforged arrows with Tornado Shot to not only get things like Culling Strike, but I can also use it to enable Mana and Life Leech. So for things like no regen maps are actually enabled for a build like this, where you can actually run multiple map mods that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. But the big thing is you solve recovery for mine builds, which is normally a very big pain point. Needing to stack a lot of regen on miners is usually pretty difficult. So just having access to leech is, of course, very strong. So that's the TLDR of why I'm doing Tornado Shot Mines. Now, as for tri-stacking, the entire package here is basically, we use Widow Hill and Poised Prism. Poised Prism gives you a large amount of flat damage for attributes, and that's the primary payoff of tri-attribute stacking, is a large amount of flat damage. In conjunction, we have Curtain Call, which when you hit 800 int and 800 dex, allows you to throw 2 extra mines, which basically triples your clear. And then you also run Shaper's Touch, so that each of the base attributes of your or each of the base stats that your attributes grant are granted by other stats as well. So you sort of double dip a lot. That's how I get stuff like a large amount of evasion. As you can see, I have 56,000 evasion, and I have 4,600 energy shield and 4,500 life, despite not having any energy shield or life nodes on my tree. Actually, that's a lie. I have these life nodes and I have these, but very minimal life nodes, right? Typically, you'd expect a build to take things like Blood Drinker or Thick Skin, but we really actually don't need to spec these nodes because I just get such a large amount of life and ES off of just stacking attributes. So it's a very big deal. Finally, the big payoff of tri-attribute stacking and why it actually works in this league, and the main reason that I'm doing this in Phrecia League, is because typically if you're running a tri-attribute stacker, you would want to run the belt called Cyclopean Coil. And the reason you want to run a Cyclopean Coil is because it gives you access to this line right here. 1% increased damage per 5 of your lowest attribute. Currently, I'm at 1100 strength, which means this would be giving me about 200% increased damage. Cyclopean Coil would not only give you 200% increased damage, but it would also give you 18% increased attributes, making it a very strong belt, which basically completely means that you can't really run you can't run Mage Blood, which is a pretty detrimental thing when you're considering an endgame build. However, this league we get access to a new class, called the Aristocrat. Now, typically a tri-attribute stacker would be playing on Inquisitor because you get access to Righteous Providence, a node that gives you increased crit chance based on Strength or Int, whichever one is lower. However, the starting location on the Templar is pretty bad for a bow skill, right? I mean, all things considered, it's probably a similar amount of points to this, to be fair. However, there is one other payoff of being duelist, which I'll get into later. It is nicer to be down here, especially early on, because there's a lot of nice nodes down here that you have access to on an earlier version of this build that basically make it easier to spec into early on. I initially had planned to do this on League Start, however, I didn't end up doing that, but it makes for an easier time on a lower amount of currency. Now, the big payoff of being Aristocrat is this node right here, Dreadful Attitude. This gives you 5% increased damage per 5 of your lowest attribute, which is 5 times higher than the Mastery and 5 times higher than what you would get on Cyclopean Coil. And currently, this is giving me 1,140% increased damage, which is very, very substantial, as you can imagine. Other than this, you also get 30% increased of 2 attributes of your choice. So in this case, I'm taking Intelligence and Dexterity, which also allows me to be freeze immune and shock immune. Granted, Dexterity is the highest and Int is the second highest off of these nodes. And on top of that, it gives you 9 passive points. For an attribute stacker, 9 passive points is completely insane. If you actually look at the PoB, these 9 passive points probably amount to somewhere around 50% more damage. This node and these small nodes are completely busted. They're basically illegal. They're ridiculously, ridiculously strong. To be honest, 50% damage is probably an understatement. I'm just trying to be safe here with numbers. It's probably somewhere around 60 or 70% more damage. But 9 passive points on an attribute stacker is insane. So that's the class. That's sort of the shell for tri-attribute stacking. Now, as for actually stacking our attributes, how are we doing that? Well, primarily it's stuff like very normal stuff like split personalities. We're running a ton of these 30 strength nodes and just getting a ton of attributes through our pathing. We have each of these notables allocated. So I have Utmost Might Anointed. We have Utmost Swiftness allocated over here, and we have Utmost Intellect allocated up here, along with 5% increased attributes. Also have an Eyes of the Great Wolf with increased attributes, and basically an Astromentis on my ring with this helical, which is a lot easier to craft than it looks like it is. I lucked out with tier 1 life here, but I was pretty much willing to settle for like tier 3 or tier 4. But basically just the more important part here is the attributes, just getting a ton of attributes, right? And basically just grabbing attributes everywhere we can. So that's sort of the shell for tri-attribute stacking. There's not really anything super insane to it. There's not really a lot of detail here. There's a couple of nuanced things like Mage Bane allowing you to completely suppress cap with just dexterity once you hit 1500 dex, which I should be able to do on this build later on. Stuff like Poised Prism giving you a ton of res. If you actually look at my resistances here, Poised Prism gives you a ton of res because it's with Widow Hail. The +1 arrow over here turning into +3 arrows for Tornado Shot because of Widow Hail, right? Getting +1 arrow over here. It's pretty insane. So there's a lot of smaller nuanced things about this build, like even like the less damage taken per dexterity, for example. Lots of like teeny tiny things that add up. But in essence, this one node right here, Dreadful Attitude, along just the Ascendancy in general, this Ascendancy is very, very, very enabling for tri-attribute stacking in this capacity for attack mines. And it hasn't really been so in a very, very long time that we've had an Ascendancy that's ever been able to enable something like this. Not even in a very long time. I don't think we've ever had anything that enabled something like this to this degree, which is why I wanted to do this build during the Phrecia League, and which is why I am doing this build during the Phrecia League. So that's kind of the TLDR. There's not much nuance to it other than that. I guess I could go over my like gems setups. We are able to run Sniper's Mark on hit because of, again, manaforged arrows triggering. Just to cost 1 damage taken guard skill. We've got Skitterbot's Grace, Precision, Link to Enlighten, and that sort of solves itself. I do need an Enlighten 4 here because currently I can't actually hit my mine cap, which is supposed to be 18. As soon as I get an Enlighten 4, that fixes itself. We've got Enhanced Link to Automation, Detonate Mines, and Flame Dash. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, one thing you will notice is that I'm not doing Locus Mines and I'm doing high impact mines, even though I'm playing bows. And the reason for this is I completely despise Locus Mines. The biggest thing about Locus Mines is that it doesn't let you detonate if the mines are within a certain radius of your character, which feels terrible to me. I don't want that on my character because I feel like I will have to think while I'm playing. I will never be able to kite anything. I'll never be able to like stand on top of anything if I need to. It's just a very frustrating playstyle and I don't enjoy it. The second downside is you'd never be able to play Tornado Shot with that because Locus Mines basically forces the Tornado Shot to aim at you, which is a very, very bad feeling. And it really, really kills the clear of the skill. So we're doing high impact mine. And even though I'm throwing 3 mines with every single cast, if I'm going to go back to Blood Aqueducts here, just to show you guys, even though we're throwing 3 mines every cast, you'll notice that I'm not overthrowing mines. Overthrowing mines is a very, very big issue. And basically overthrowing mines means you hit your mine cap and then you keep throwing past your mine cap, which is a very severe issue with a lot of builds where they will hit mine cap and then you'll keep throwing, and because you have so much throwing speed, you'll overthrow. AKA, you're losing casts because you're throwing too many mines and not detonating them fast enough. Thankfully, Curtain Call comes with 46% increased detonation speed. I'm also getting a little bit extra with Volatile Mines, getting 30% detonation speed here. And I'm also getting even more detonation speed with Detonate Mines Quality linked to Enhance. This gives you 36% increased detonation speed here as well. So, as you can see, my mine count usually never passes about 6 or 7. So if you wanted to config the actual damage for this, I would recommend putting it at 6 or 7. I'm configuring my PoBs at 18 just because I like seeing the reservation. But if you actually want to check your damage, I would suggest configuring around whatever your average is. Your average might be different based on if you have a different role, if you don't have enhance here, right? That might change. Now, that all being said, there is one other small amount of nuance to this as far as detonations are concerned, and that's a little bit of CDR. Now, there was a video a while ago describing basically the mechanics behind mine detonation. I'm going to leave a link to that in the description. But basically it details that by default, your detonate mines cooldown is 0.2 and the next server tick rate is at 0.198. So you just need about 2% CDR to basically hit that breakpoint, or 3% or something like that. So I just have a 5% CDR roll here on top of just having automation already. In theory, I don't even need this 5% CDR roll anymore since Enhanced Link to Automation is giving me a little bit of extra CDR. But I might end up dropping Enhance for another gem, which is why I'm still keeping the boot enchant. But anyway, that's basically the TLDR. I'm gonna showcase the build for you guys so you can see what it performs like. I've basically ID'd the T17 here just to show it off. So I just pop it in, just like boom. I've also got an Uber Boss. I haven't really done an Uber Boss, so I don't know how this is gonna perform. And I'm also familiar that Fortress isn't exactly the hardest map, but I also don't want to go and buy a T17. And Fortress just so happens to be the T17 map that I'm farming. So I just figured why not just show you guys just like a baseline T17. So the playstyle is pretty straightforward. You basically walk around and you throw a mine. The mine detonates. And yeah, that's it. That's literally it. You're basically playing as if you're a bow build, except you throw mines. I throw mines detonate, they shoot tornado shots, the screen blows up, and pops your uncle, right? So, pretty straightforward. Now, this build isn't the tankiest. You'll notice that I do lose my ES every so often. I'm not exactly super tanky. As far as defense layers are concerned, I should be able to get up to 95% chance to evade, 100% suppress, along with about in endgame, I think I'll hit 6.5k ES along with 4.5k life. And we also have Ghost Dance on a pool of like 50k evasion. That's like recovering around 1500 ES every time it goes off. So while we're not squishy, we're also not immortal. I just put this in like the pretty tanky category. You're not like a hardcore viable build, but as far as softcore is concerned, I'm pretty happy with this amount of defenses, especially for how comfy this build is to play and how good the clear is. Like, as you guys can see, it's pretty good. Also, I have no idea where this boss is. Did I miss it? Is he down here? No, he's not in fact down here. Whoa. I've never seen that before. But yeah, pretty straightforward build. This is a monster life is extra ES map, so I guess you guys will get to see the damage a little bit better. Ah, there the bosses. You guys will get to see the damage a little bit better. That is an Einhar beast. So, oh, I will collect these because I am currently farming silos. So usually for the boss, I will turn off my automation. I'll throw a couple of mines on the floor, and then I'll turn it back on. And this is basically the playstyle. You're just gonna stand there. You're gonna throw your mines and deal damage, and that's it. It's not really very complicated, and the boss is dead. Simple as that. Monster res, life is extra ES map. Pretty chill, and yeah, loot, GG. Very straightforward playstyle. Basically, to be honest, it plays very much like you're playing a self-cast tornado shot, but with auto targeting and more projectiles. So it just feels, the build just feels like butter. Also gonna just throw this in. I spent quite a bit for the eater, but I figured might as well gamble for a Nimbus if we're gonna try for an Uber for a showcase. Now, granted, I am gonna put this out there. I haven't really tried an Uber on this stuff, so just putting that out there. I haven't tried an Uber yet, so just letting you guys know if I die, it's because I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, it's skill issue, not build issue. Okay, apparently I can also tank that laser. I was not aware that I could tank that laser. Oh, that's a lot bigger than the normal one. I lost my hand on Flame Dash there for a second. I had to look down at my keyboard to make sure my finger was on the correct key. But yeah, this is basically how the build plays. Pretty straightforward. Just throw mines, Golf coming in there from the manaforged arrows, and yeah, I got oh, this is the Rage helmet, right? Yeah, pretty straightforward playstyle, as you can see. It's just literally walk around, throw mines. Very good mapping build, very good bossing build because we have a lot of damage. Now, one thing I do want to say is that there's a couple of things that you can do at a higher investment level, or if they show up on the market. I haven't put them on for this showcase because I don't want to like make it look like this is all that you have to have this for the build, because you really don't. As you can see, my damage is insane even without these items, but I just want to point these items out because they have some tech that you typically won't see on a lot of builds, and I haven't seen on a lot of builds, so I just want to point these out. So the first thing is Curtain Call. You can actually get +1 projectile, and the reason you can get +1 projectile here is because this is not a drop restricted unique. So the Ultimatum Helm can corrupt for +1 projectile, and then it can brick into a Curtain Call, right? So this is not that much more damage over a Power Charge helmet. A Power Charge helmet is currently somewhere around like 50C or something at the moment as I'm recording this video, so don't feel an absolutely necessary reason to switch to a +1 projectile helmet. It's about 5% more damage, but +1 projectiles is something that you can get on a helmet like this, and I just want to point that out, is that this is possible. And if you're playing any other build that happens to be using a unique helmet that isn't a boss drop or something, you should probably check if these kinds of enchants exist. You can get like 80% socketed gems, cost and reservation efficiency. You can get skills fire and additional projectile. You could get nearby enemies have malediction. There's quite a few options here for implicits, and I would definitely recommend checking that out. The second thing that I want to point out, which is more specific to this build, is this Forbidden Flame and Flesh. So Fatal Flourish is a special keystone that you can only get. This is a pair of forbidden jewels that can only drop from an Uber boss. And Fatal Flourish basically makes so that your non-travel skills, your non-travel attack skills repeat an additional time. Now, if you're familiar with melee, you'll know that this wording shows up on multi-strike. And basically what it means is when you shoot once, let me just put these jewels in real quick. When you shoot once, so I'll shoot once normally, right? This is what happens when I shoot one time. It shoots one set of arrows, as you would expect. If I put on this Forbidden Flame and Flesh, when I press the button once, it shoots twice, right? Doesn't really do much to your DPS shooting twice. It just means you're paying half the mana cost because you only pay the mana cost for the first attack. And I mean, it still takes your attack speed and everything. However, Fatal Flourish also makes it so that the second attack deals 60% more damage. So on average, for any attack build, you're basically getting 30% more damage because every second attack will deal 60% more damage, right? Averages out pretty simply. However, for this build in particular, on mines, so I'm going to take Curtain Call off here just so I can demonstrate this better with just one mine thrown. When you throw a mine, typically, it'll fire one tornado shot. However, with these Forbidden Jewels, it fires 2 tornado shots. And that second tornado shot is dealing 60% more damage. However, this doesn't reduce my mine throwing speed. I can still throw mines like normal. So unlike attacks, unlike a self-cast attack build, it doesn't take time for me to do the second attack. The mine does the second attack for me. So while this is only 30% damage for normal attack builds, this is 160% more damage for this build specifically because it's attack mines. So a little bit of tech there that I wanted to share. I spent like the last couple of days farming for this because it was there was only one jewel on the market at that point, and I wanted one really, really, really bad because I really wanted to share this tech with people. So here you go. If these show up again, just make sure you know the value of these because these are like 160% more damage for a build like this, which is quite insane. And the detonations go absolutely galactic here, as you can see. In fact, I might even showcase another Uber Ross just real quick, just so you guys can see the difference. But yeah, the TLDR of it is very, very strong. Very, very strong Forbidden Jewels. So let's do another Eater since we didn't get a... Oh, I definitely don't want to buy that many. Since we didn't get a Nimis the first time, surely we get a Nimis the second time, right? Because that's how this stuff works. So here, we'll just toss this in. So now we're comparing having the Forbidden Jewels, having the +1 additional projectile here, just to show you guys where the build is at now after I've farmed all of this stuff. And what you can expect if you manage to somehow get your hands on these jewels. As you can see here, the damage is much higher, right? It's a very stupid amount of damage. It's really, really, really strong, and it kind of helps to clear a lot as well because your mines are constantly casting. Did I missed an orb somewhere, and then I got slapped. But that's a perfect example of this build not being super tanky. Also doesn't help that I'm level 99 and losing XP inside Ubers. Probably not the best idea. But yeah, as you can... I would be inclined to cut this out of the video, but I feel like someone's gonna get some good amusement out of me basically demolishing like an hour's worth of XP on my character. But it's fine. You guys can see how much damage this does. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's really, really, really stupid. And yeah, that's the build. I just wanted to share this with you guys. I am gonna probably update this. I'm gonna keep a bunch of POBs in the description for different budget levels that I recorded off of my own character as I progressed the character. So please do look in the description. You'll see all those different POBs. And I'll probably post another video as an update video as I develop this character further, kind of push these attributes up. I think we can probably push around 1500, 1600, maybe even 1700 all attributes in like an endgame version of this build. Again, like I said, we'll probably hit about 6.5k ES. And if I'm willing to get there and if the items exist, we could potentially hit about triple the current damage that you're seeing here right now. So we will definitely get a lot tankier, and we're definitely going to get a lot more damage. So definitely stay tuned. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys maybe on Twitch, or I'll see you guys next time. I love you, and stay safe.